This episode of SESSLER'S Something is brought to you by Netflix. All right, everybody, SESSLER'S Something. I felt like maybe we would just answer questions for this one. It's been, thankfully, something of a slow week. I could try to make something up and get all like hot under the collar about it, but I'm just not in the mood. It's late summer. It's what you call the dog days, except for in San Francisco where it's cold. So we're going to do something. And what I found interesting is we had two very similar questions that came in. One of them is, what do you think about the increasing move towards multi-platform games? Do you think this helps the industry get games to the masses, or does it rob systems of their former selling points? Similarly, we got another one. After Square Enix announced that Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy 15 are going to be multi-platform releases, I've come to notice that a lot of games being released now are becoming multi-platforms, and there are less and less exclusive titles for a console. I get that developers want their games to be played by as many people as possible, but I feel that making a game multi-plat instead of exclusive to a certain console has a lot of negatives. What's your take on multi-platform games and console exclusives? I left some names off on purpose because I'm going to be honest, there's some flawed logic that's happening here. In terms of the idea that they want games to be played by as many people as possible, in essence, yes, that's true. But let's be honest, they want games to be bought by as many people as possible. They're really, in a lot of the dialogue that seems to be happening, there seems to be a sort of a key factor that's sometimes forgotten. These are businesses. They have to make money to survive. Their original intent is to create profit. And multi-platform really makes that essential. The minute you go exclusive to a console, you have halved, if not done more, to the potential consumer base of a particular game. A good example is here a company like Insomniac, who once were completely exclusive to Sony, went multi-platform. It becomes a business imperative to have to try to get the game in as many people's hands as possible. Now, on the flip side of this, we saw a lot more exclusives, as one of the gentlemen pointed out, earlier in this generation. And I think that has a lot to do with the initial huge success of the Xbox 360. And it took a while for Sony, especially in Europe, to kind of catch up and find a greater level of parity. And once there was that parity between the consoles, we saw far less exclusives. We saw a lot of games, BioShock being one that comes to mind, that had about a full year on the 360 before it was made available on the PlayStation 3, and that was something of a business objective. The money it cost to try to move it over to Sony's console clearly was not seen to generate enough profit to be able to spend the money to make that happen. Whether or not this really harms anything, I don't think it harms anybody to try to sell as many games, if it's a good game, as possible. I understand the idea that the exclusives become a distinguishing factor for the consoles, and this plays into kind of the fanboy discussion that I was having a couple of weeks back. I know that people like to identify certain games and certain consoles with themselves, and that when Square decided to go multi-platform, it was a big like, I can't believe the sky is falling. My precious thing is no longer with me. That's not going to happen. The PS2, when it was very exclusive with Square, was due to the fact that the PS2 was wildly successful, and it just wasn't worth it to try to move it over to other consoles. What this leads to, though, and this is interesting, because in one of the questions, he says, does it rob systems of their former selling points? That is important. I've always said that I think Sony distinguishes themselves by having wonderful exclusive titles and a great variety of them, and that Microsoft is having a challenge there. This is why we're seeing both from Microsoft and Sony that they are trying to make their consoles broader than just games. Why they're bringing in those levels of entertainment, those ways of engaging with entertainment that's out there, the fact that they're both starting their own studios for unique entertainment products that are available on those consoles. That is going to become increasingly what the distinguishing points are. Not just the fact that it plays games, but how it also just fills the living room up as that one primary access point. I know it frustrates a lot of people out there because it sounds like games are not first and foremost, but back to what I said at the beginning. It's a business, and they're looking to sell these consoles. Now, here's what I found funny. On the flip side of that, I got another question. Do you think it would ever be possible for games to have cross-console platform multiplayer, given the new massive open-world online gaming capabilities we see rising along with games such as Destiny and The Division? Maybe seeing a game that allows you to play side-by-side with your Sony friends while using your Xbox is a bit far-fetched, but I'm sure Microsoft is capable of such a feat where you can play with your Windows gamer friends using Xbox Live. What are your thoughts on this? I just love the idea that we have some people that are worried about the loss of exclusivity, and then we also have people who are discussing whether or not we can just turn it into sort of one happy console-friendly world. Actually, that technology is quite possible, I imagine. The thing is, yes, we want to have things multi-platform, but when it comes to those consoles, they want their own pissing ground. Before we get to our last question, let's give a thank you to our sponsor, Netflix. Netflix streams TV episodes and movies directly to your home, saving you time, money, and hassle. With Netflix, you can instantly watch unlimited shows and movies streaming directly to your PC, Mac, or right to your TV with your PS3, Xbox 360, or Nintendo Wii console. For a limited time, get your free trial membership. Go to netflix.com/Sessler and sign up now. Also remember, there's original programming on Netflix like the recently released Orange is the New Black. It's a women in prison comedy. Now remember, both by doing this, you get a free trial membership and you help out Rev3 Games and Sessler's Something. So right now, go to netflix.com/Sessler. All right, this last one, this one I'm very sensitive to. What are your hopes for the game discovery problems that may affect the Xbox One and PS4, considering indie and self-publishing will increase? It has taken companies like Apple and Google a long time to even come close to having a good model for app discovery on their mobile platforms. Not to mention, if the Windows 8 App Store is any indication of what Xbox One will be like, we are going to be suffering. I could not agree with you more. I think you're being generous about the iTunes App Store and the Google App Shop. Discovery is a huge problem, especially when you know that there is bad product out there. It's very hard to distinguish one game from another. That star system starts to feel a little insecure. I don't think anyone has developed the right rubric where by just voting things up, you really can have the cream rise above the milk. And what you really end up with is this sense of cacophony. Every time I try to go look for a new game when I'm taking a big long flight, it just becomes nearly impossible to just parse all the product that is made available. And just even the way that things are being labeled doesn't always seem to hold water. I do not reference a very popular game that is available for a lot of people out there. I really want to see self-publishing. I want to see indie survive on the consoles. I think the intentions from both Sony and Microsoft are in the right place, but without that storefront, without a way that is being properly curated, the way that we're used to, say, go to a comic book store, the way we used to go to game stores, it was set up in a way that you could discover things. It is going to be very problematic. Having said that, I also am not going to fault Sony and Microsoft that they can't make it work, because at this point, no one has. All right, also for this week, just bear in mind, we got two big reviews coming out. I'm doing Splinter Cell Blacklist. Max Scoville is doing Saints Row 4. Both of those will be up on the site on the 14th. That's Wednesday, so definitely check those out. We're finally leaving the drought and entering the good times. Also, ask more questions below. Also read other people's questions so you don't reiterate the exact same thing. I look forward to answering them.